So about a year ago, I posted this video that was comparing two Marvel Comics characters that were both created by a man named Brian Michael Bendis, Riri Williams and Miles Morales. I thought the video was going to do fine, but what I wasn't expecting was for it to become one of the most popular videos that I have ever made. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm really disappointed that this is the video that literally hundreds of thousands of people first got exposed to this channel. I think that the video was fine, but I will fully admit that some of the points that I made weren't all that well explained, and I could honestly do better. Based on the responses that I've seen, there are a lot of people that think that I think Riri Williams is a really good character, but I don't. Hell, I even explicitly mentioned it in the video. She's probably my least favorite of Marvel's recent additions. Man, I really forget how blurry that was. Look, I'm a one-man operation and I had just gotten a new lens, so come on, throw me a bone. I think that Riri Williams is an okay character, but I would definitely hesitate to say good. My main issue comes from the fact that a lot of the people that have complaints about Riri clearly haven't actually read her series and instead got all their information from third-party sources with a very clear SJW's ruined comics bias. I mean, look, issue 1 of her series was the 5th best-selling physical comic when it was released, and it doesn't even have 100,000 units sold. So you're trying to tell me that every single person that watched my last video, which has over 1 million views, actually read it? I don't think so. Of course, if you're not actually engaging with the source material and instead rely on having it paraphrased by third-party sources, then you're going to absorb their bias, because literally everybody has bias. And that definitely includes myself if you're only watching my videos. But let me give you a little bit more of it. I'm gonna talk about why I actually think that Riri Williams is a lackluster character in comparison to Miles Morales. So, here we go. Riri Williams was introduced in sporadic pages of the Invincible Iron Man series, totaling in at only 6 pages before she made her first proper appearance as a hero in Civil War II, an event that was pretty bad in and of itself. You know what she mostly does in the event? She was pretty much thrown in there without much explanation, so she was mostly just appearing in the background. The middle of a huge event is really not the best place to establish a new character unless you make them a front and center part of it. It also didn't help that the ending of the event led Tony Stark going into a coma and having Riri immediately replace him, which made it very obvious that her entire character was just created to replace Tony. That was really bad since it's something that needs to be earned. Miles Morales, on the other hand, was explicitly created to replace Peter Parker, but the way that we were introduced to him was done in a much more natural way. We got his personality and supporting cast very well established even before he was bitten by the spider. It also helps that he didn't jump right into being Spider-Man right away. To make things even worse on Riri's end, I actually went and counted up how much page time she got between her main appearance in Civil War II up until she took over the Invincible Iron Man series. It was only 16 pages, which is generous since I counted double-page art spreads as 2 separate pages, and I even included super small cameos in other books. I don't know if there really is a right number of pages that she should have had first, but I really get the feeling that it's not 16. Now, obviously Rhodey would have been the logical choice to replace Tony as Iron Man. I mean, heck, he's done it before. But he was killed off at the very beginning of Civil War II as one of the main catalysts for the event to happen in the first place. If Marvel specifically wanted a young black girl though, then of course they could have just used Rhodey's niece Leela, who was already established in the Iron Patriot series. She doesn't have much connection to Tony though, so replacing him would be weird and out of left field. But then again, so is Riri. While I do enjoy Marvel's push for more diverse characters, and I definitely have enjoyed a lot of what they've produced, I think that creating more characters and making things even more convoluted for new readers is not the way to go about it. There are a lot of underutilized characters of color that have already existed in the Marvel universe for years. Use them. Of course, this is Brian Michael Bendis that we're talking about, and while I do like plenty of other things that he's written in the past, one of my main frustrations with him as a writer is how he completely disregards continuity and how he's much quicker to completely invent something new rather than build upon any previous works. There's also the matter of
Riri's a Mary Sue,
which I also addressed in my video, but I will admit I did it pretty poorly. Now, don't get me wrong, I still very much stand by my statement that the term Mary Sue is thrown around so much to the point point where it's essentially become meaningless, especially since it seems like the only people who actually use the term unironically are these very specific type of armchair critics that think that they're media scholars because they know the names of a few tropes. You know, these same kinds of people who think that CinemaSins is legitimate film criticism. If this is you, then I know that there is literally nothing I can say that would change your mind. If you haven't already, just feel free to leave a comment calling me a libtard or a cuck and you can move on. If you actually want to have a conversation though, then I would really appreciate it if you stuck around and listened to my entire argument. I really wouldn't mind. For the most part, the general definition of Mary Sue is that it's an overly perfect character with no flaws, that characters treat as super important, and in their eyes they can do no wrong. I take issue with that because the people that tend to throw around the term Mary Sue also tend to overlook actual character flaws. This is especially funny to me considering that most of the people who call Riri a Mary Sue are very often the exact same ones that are quick to point out several key personality flaws, such as how she's an arrogant sociopathic thief that's quick to anger and makes terrible decisions by asserting her viewpoint on others to the point of literally taking over a nation. Those are some major character flaws, but they're ones that lay the groundwork for character growth and actually parallel the arc of Tony Stark. Or are we just going to pretend that he was already a nuanced character at the point of his creation? Are we going to pretend like Tony Stark didn't start off as, and still sort of is, an arrogant sociopath who manipulates others and is known for making bad decisions by asserting his viewpoint on others to the point of literally starting a superhuman civil war? This by no means excuses the issues that Riri has, but it takes time to build character development. Very few characters in any series are fully baked from the get-go, and most compelling characters do make mistakes and overcome their flaws. We've finally been getting this payoff with Riri ever since someone other than Bendis was able to write her, most notably when she joined a team of young heroes called the Champions. Now, plenty of commenters in the last video were also quick to point out just how terrible it was to have Riri make a perfect Ironheart suit from the get-go with a bunch of scraps. But I mean, she didn't. Her first suit was a clunky mess and she tweaked it over time. She didn't make anything nearly as streamlined as her finished suit until she had the help of an AI version of Tony Stark. As for her age, well, here's a preteen Tony Stark single-handedly controlling a team of top-of-the-line robots at a science festival that were decades ahead of his competition, who I might add were an entire team at a robotics company. If you say that genius-level intellect at a young age is a flaw for Riri, then you also have to say that it is one for Tony as well. Let's also not forget that it is naturally easier for Riri to make a powered suit because that concept has already been done in the Marvel Universe ad nauseum, and several of Tony Stark's own original Iron Man suit documents have been leaked before, so it really does give Riri a significant leg up in getting started building her own suit as compared to Tony, who had to originate the concept himself. Regardless, this does tie into a statement that I made in my last video, that if Miles Morales and Riri are incorrectly labeled as Mary Sues by ignoring their flaws and focusing on their extraordinary abilities, you'd also have to call Peter Parker and Tony Stark a Mary or Gary Stu as well, since they have a lot of the same qualities. Of course, assigning that label to Tony and Peter would be wildly inaccurate. The difference is that Peter and Tony have had decades of multimedia properties to further their character development and flesh them out as characters, which is something that Miles is finally starting to get, and something that will naturally take time for Riri to acquire. I am a firm believer that there is no such thing as a bad character. There are only bad writers. A good enough writer can turn even the worst of concepts into something of quality. For a good example, just take a look at the Falcon. He started off as a stereotypical black criminal, but as he got more love and care put into his history, we ended up getting a much better character these days. Once again, for clarity, I do agree with the assessment that Riri was pretty poorly handled when Bendis was writing her, but also again, new creative teams are already starting to quote-unquote fix her. It also didn't help that although Riri was using the codename Ironheart, she was given the invincible Iron Man publication title. A lot of non-comic readers expect a one-to-one correlation between production title and in-universe name, so a lot of people screaming about replacement legitimately thought that Riri was being called Iron Man, but I will admit that the extremely similar looking costume wasn't doing her any favors in making that distinction clear. At least Miles Morales had a badass suit that was clearly his own. Although I'm not a huge fan of her current suit, the new Ironheart armor is a hell of a step towards separating her from Tony and better establishing her as her own character. Last but not least for this video, we can't ignore that Miles Morales went through the exact same treatment when he was first introduced. It has been great seeing comments from more longtime comic fans who actually remember that a lot of the same arguments that were being thrown at Riri are the ones that he received as well. The difference was that admittedly people were more accepting of Miles since he replaced an alternate universe character as opposed to the main one, but he's also had more time to grow as a character and be incorporated in outside media. Looking at you, Spider-Verse. Besides that, time does play a huge factor in acceptance. With the hyper-reactionary world of modern social media, everything is either the best thing ever, or this is the worst thing ever and it's going to kill insert thing here. Insert thing here is ruined. In the close to a decade since Miles Morales was first introduced, there's not many people that are as mad as they first were back then. Given just as much time, I guarantee that not many people are going to be as mad about Riri as they are now. That is, if they even remember that she existed in the first place. I really hope that this video helped better explain my positions that I mentioned last time, and also maybe gave some new information to help you see things a little bit differently. And like I said, I really do want to have actual discussion down there in the comments below, but please be civil. I also want to apologize if I did come off as hostile at any point in this video. That wasn't my intention, but I fully understand that sometimes it's hard to truly write things objectively because, like I said at the top of the episode, everybody has their own biases, and so that is going to naturally come through in my writing, but you know, I can at least call it out. But if you like this video, then why not consider subscribing, or even watching another one? And if you want to learn more about Miles Morales or the rest of the Spider-Man mythos, then I actually have a dedicated playlist with every Spider-Man video that I have ever made, so maybe give that a look if you are interested in that. I don't know, I'm tired. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully I'll see you next time.